Assalamu alaikum. Here we will cover celiac disease. Celiac disease is also known as non-tropical sprue or gluten-sensitive enteropathy. It is an immune-mediated enteropathy which is triggered by the ingestion of gluten-containing foods such as wheat, rye, or barley in genetically predisposed individuals. Now, what is the pathogenesis of celiac disease? In this diagram, this is shown the mucosa of the small intestine, and here is the lamina propria, and this is the lumen of the small intestine. When a person takes gluten, then this gluten is converted by enzymes in the mucosa of the small intestine into a 33 amino acids containing alpha peptide called alpha gliadin. This alpha gliadin binds with a specialized IgA antibody in the mucosa of small intestine. After binding with IgA antibody, this gliadin is not destroyed. Normally, this IgA antibody destroys anything which binds with it, but it is not in the case of gliadin. After binding with IgA antibody, this gliadin and IgA antibody complex bind with specialized receptors called transferrin receptors on the surface of these enterocytes. After binding with transferrin receptors, this gliadin is taken from the mucosa into the lamina propria. Some of these gliadin molecules, after binding with enterocytes, causes these enterocytes to release interleukin 15. When interleukin 15 is released from these enterocytes, then it acts on nearby enterocytes and causes proliferation of T lymphocytes. These are intraepithelial T lymphocytes. Normally, intraepithelial T lymphocytes are present in the mucosa of small intestine in such a way that for every 100 enterocytes, we have 20 intraepithelial T lymphocytes. But after proliferation due to interleukin 15 in case of gluten-sensitive enteropathy, the number of T lymphocytes increase and they become 30, 40 or 50 per 100 enterocytes. After entering of the gliadin in from the mucosa into the lamina propria of small intestine, it is acted upon by an enzyme in the lamina propria known as tissue transglutaminase. This tissue transglutaminase converts gliadin into deaminated forms and removes amide from the gliadin. This deaminated gliadin now is recognized by uh, these are the macrophages. It is recognized by macrophages or dendritic cells, which are antigen presenting cells. These antigen presenting cells have MHC class II molecules on their surface which bind with these gliadin molecules. These MHC class II molecules are encoded by a gene which is known as HLA gene. If a person is suffering from celiac disease, then this HLA gene has specialized alleles in that person which are HLA-DQ2 or HLA-DQ8 alleles. These HLA alleles are present in all the persons who are suffering from celiac disease. When gliadin bind with MHC class II molecules, then it is presented to helper T cells and it causes proliferation of helper T cells. These are CD4 positive T cells. These CD4 positive T cells then release interferon gamma and tumor necrosis factor, which cause further damage to these epithelial cells of the small intestine. When there is further damage to these cells, then it causes further gliadin to move from the mucosa into the lamina propria. The T lymphocytes which have been proliferated intraepithelially, these are CD8 positive T cells. These CD8 positive T cells have specialized receptors which are known as natural killer group 2D receptors. These natural killer group 2D receptors bind with MICA molecule. This MICA molecule is present on some enterocytes. As it is seen, then some of these enterocytes are showing this yellow molecule. This is MICA molecule. This is the abbreviation used for major histocompatibility complex class 1 chain related gene A, MICA. This MICA binds with these receptors and it causes damage to these enterocytes. So these enterocytes are further destroyed and more gliadin can come from the mucosa into the lamina propria. The CD4 positive T cells, which are activated, further activate B cells. These B lymphocytes are responsible for the formation of antibodies. Three types of antibodies are being produced in case of celiac disease. These are anti-gliadin antibodies, anti-endomycin antibodies, and anti-tissue transglutaminase antibodies. These anti-endomycin antibodies are actually anti-tissue transglutaminase antibodies, but the difference is that they are produced in the endomysium. These anti-tissue transglutaminase antibodies are formed in lamina propria, and these anti-endomycin antibodies are formed in the endomysium, which is the connective tissue layer present outside the smooth muscle cells. So this is the pathogenesis of the celiac disease. Now what is the morphology of the celiac disease? First of all, there is gross and then there is histology. In case of celiac disease, when we look at the small intestine, then this is the normal small intestine and this is the picture with celiac disease. Normally we can see that there are villi. This is the diagram which is showing normal villi of the small intestine. We can see these are elongated villi, and then here we have a person who is suffering from celiac disease, and we can see that there is flattening of the villi. This is the gross picture which is showing normal mucosa of the small intestine, and here we can say villous brush border. Now what happens in a person of celiac disease? There is flattening of the mucosa, and there is loss of the villi. This is flattened mucosa. Now what is the histology of this disease? This is showing a normal picture of duodenal mucosa, and here we can see villi, and for every 3 villi we have a crypt. This is a crypt. This is a normal mucosa of the duodenum. Now what happens in celiac disease? In celiac disease, there is flattening of the villi. These elongated villi have been flattened. Then there is increase in the number of crypts, which can be seen. These are crypts which are increased in number, so we can say that there is crypt hyperplasia. Then in the epithelium we can see increased number of blue dots, which are actually intraepithelial lymphocytes. These are CD8 positive T cells, and their number has been increased, so we can say that there is intraepithelial lymphocytosis. Increased number of blue dots are also present in the lamina propria. This is actually inflammatory infiltrate containing plasma cells, neutrophils, and lymphocytes. So there are 3 main important points which should be kept in mind while studying the histopathology of celiac disease. There is flattening of villi, crypt hyperplasia, intraepithelial lymphocytosis, and inflammatory infiltrate in the lamina propria. This is again the same diagram showing flattening of the villi, intraepithelial lymphocytosis, lamina propria inflammatory infiltrate, and crypt hyperplasia. This is immunohistochemistry, which is again showing the flattening of villi, hyperplasia of the crypts, and these are intraepithelial lymphocytosis and inflammatory infiltrate in the lamina propria. Now, what foods should be avoided by a person who is suffering from celiac disease? Gluten is present in many foods including wheat, barley, rice, and many bakery products, and these all should be avoided by a person who is suffering from celiac disease. Now, what are the symptoms of celiac disease? The general symptoms of celiac disease are slightly different in adults and children. Normally, there is unexplained weight loss, abdominal cramps, diarrhea, constipation, or bloating. Then there are numbness or tingling sensations in the legs, toothaches, joint pains, arthralgia or arthritis. Then there is a weakness of the bones, infertility. The symptoms which are mostly are presented in adults are anxiety, depression, migraines, headaches, muscles and joint pains, arthritis. Then there is infertility and miscarriages, diarrhea, constipation, bloating, abdominal pain, and iron deficiency anemia, fatigue. Iron deficiency anemia mainly results due to flattening of the villi in in the brush border of small intestine, and vitamin B12 and other nutrients are not absorbed. In children mostly present with mouth ulcers, toothaches, erosions. Then there are certain skin ulcers, abdominal pains, cramps, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, joint pains, and there is stunted growth in children, and most of the children fail to thrive. There is a complication which occurs in celiac disease, and it is known as dermatitis herpetiformis. In this condition, there is a uh, reddish swelling which occurs in the skin. Actually, the reason is that a person who is suffering from gluten sensitive enteropathy has all the time increased number of IgA antibodies in the blood. These IgA antibodies are three types of antibodies. These are anti-gliadin antibodies, anti-tissue transglutaminase antibodies, and anti-endomysial antibodies. These antibodies are also present in the blood all the time. Some of these antibodies bind themselves with tissue transglutaminase, which is present in the skin, epidermal transglutaminase. When it binds with epidermal transglutaminase, then there is infiltration of the neutrophils and there is blister formation in the skin, which will appear like this. So this is known as dermatitis herpetiformis. Now, how can we diagnose this disease? First of all, there should be suitable clinical presentation. That some of the symptoms of celiac disease must be present in a person, in which diagnosis then is further confirmed. Then we will perform serology, in which we have anti-tissue transglutaminase antibodies, anti-gliadin antibodies, and anti-endomysial antibodies. Then on histology, we will do biopsy of the duodenum and jejunum, because in a person who is suffering from celiac disease, there is constant activation of the immune system as well as there is continuous inflammation. So this person may develop lymphomas or small intestine adenocarcinoma. So biopsy should be done of duodenum and jejunum. And on histology, we know that there is increase in intraepithelial lymphocytes, which is known as intraepithelial lymphocytosis. Then there is crypt hyperplasia, and there is villus atrophy. Now, what is the treatment of a person who is suffering from celiac disease? There is one and only treatment, which is to avoid the gluten in the diet. A person should take gluten-free diet. If a person starts taking gluten-free diet, then he can recover in about 6 to 24 months. Here is a histological presentation of a person having celiac disease previously, and he has been on a gluten-free diet for some time, and here we can see that there is resolving of the villi. This is villus atrophy, and here villi are resolving. Again villi are appearing. So this is all for today. Thank you.